All right, hello everybody. We're back again with another interview. I'm Ian and I'm talking to someone who's really awesome. He's worked on a bunch of different projects such as Moral Orel, Robot Chicken, Frankenhole, the Lego movies, Bojack Horseman, and a bunch more as David Tuber.
Howdy.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Welcome back to our Tech Talk interview over. Blech. Man, I can't even make jokes and I'm already fucking up. So, to start things off, could you give us your general background and how you got started in animation? I know on your website it said that you wanted to do it ever since you were 4.
Yeah.
So, what sparked that from such an early age?
I have this impeccable memory from my childhood, but I can't remember things that happened 15 minutes ago. So I can tell you exactly what happened. I drew, at the time, our favorite animal in the preschool I was in, and mine was a orangutan. I drew this monkey drawing, and it came out really well. It was just crayons, and I remember getting a lot of praise from the teachers, my classmates, even myself. I was like, that's pretty good. And the parents came and picked us up at the end of the day, and everyone's admiring everyone's work, but then all the parents were like, your kid's got something. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm getting, for the first time, some insight into something I'm really good at. Because when you're a kid, you're trying to do stuff and you suck at everything. But that one thing, I was like, I can kind of do this, and I get it. And then I kept at it, and that was it. That was my lucky number one dime, so to speak, that started it all. Nice. It wasn't just about the praise. I really love it. Drawing is just my ultimate pastime.
Yeah. Is that monkey drawing available anywhere?
I have no idea where it is. I wish I kept it. I have a stack of all the stuff I've done since, because I just can't. I'm a little bit of a hoarder of my work sometimes, but I don't have it. But that just led to wanting to be in cartoons in some capacity. Mm-hmm. And for years I would say I'm going to be a cartoonist, and then finally realized that's not a title. Cartoonist is just a general umbrella to a bunch of other specific titles. So then I always loved movies and television, but I didn't really get it until I was like late high school. Mm-hmm. And then I went to college, I went to an art school and really understood film. Our curriculum at Columbia College in Chicago was less about the draftsmanship skills and more about cinematic film tactics. So I learned filmmaking and writing and production versus how to draw. And I think that reflects on my work, because I will admit I'm not the greatest draftsman, but I know how to write a story and I know character and stuff like that. Yeah. So getting into movies and television, that was kind of late, but I knew I thought I was going to do comics for the Chicago Trib or something like that, the local newspaper. But I was just kind of going out in all directions, drawing cartoons for anyone who needed it, like T-shirts. Some guy needed a magazine cover. The local police department needed me to do some logo for them. And I was just active drawing cartoons in any way I could.
Okay, awesome. And so if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, I believe your first foray into the animation industry was on Robot Chicken?
So I got an internship post-college. It was kind of a Hail Mary. I gotta be honest, I didn't really understand how college worked. It's embarrassing, but I didn't know a lot of things, and I learned the hard way what you're not supposed to do. Anyway, I learned that internships are supposed to occur while you're in college, but I lucked into one because I think they threw me a little charity, and they were like, well, you moved to LA, and we did say we would give you an internship, so I think they threw me a bone. They got me into the studio. That's, that song from Hamilton, In the Room When It Happens?
Okay, yeah.
That's so true. Just get your foot in and then go from there, and that's what I did. So I got this internship that led to 6 months of working in the puppet department. Then I was on the floor with the animators and I was meeting everybody, and this was during Robot Chicken season 2, and I was just learning so much per day. It was like being in a foreign country where just every day I was learning so much. I had a headache, and I was learning the process, the pipeline, everybody's names, and then I was trying to find an in anywhere. I didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to be an animator. I knew that, but it was too soon for that. So they had an opening in storyboards, and I was just supposed to be there for 2 to 3 months as an assistant, and that just kept going and going, and it led to 4.5 years.
Yeah. So that's amazing, because it's when you get a start in animation, most people don't think puppets as like it's not the most traditional kind of like animation to use. So is that kind of like a shock to you? Is that what that you got into that, or did you have any formal work in that before?
Well, my background at Columbia College in Chicago, my major was film and television with a concentration in traditional animation, because I thought I was going to make like traditional cartoons, mostly television. That's still on the docket. I still would love to do that, but it's very different than what it used to be because it's digital. It's not really hand-drawn as much. But anyway, I excelled in stop motion while I was in school. We had like 1 or 2 stop motion classes, and I became really gravitated towards that. And I became friends with the teacher, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, and I became his TA. And I was using the labs when no one else was using them. I even used them after I graduated to make a little something to put in my reel, and that's what turned the heads of Shadow Machine. That's what got Seth and so many other people to say, hey, you're not bad. Yeah, you should be in stop motion. So I felt, I've always loved stop motion, never thought I would have anything to do with it, but I've always loved practical things, toys, puppetry, marionettes, stuff like that. And I loved Nightmare Before Christmas, so I always had this fanboy appreciation of it, but I never thought I'd be involved in it. So that was kind of a natural, organic evolution of that. And getting in the studio was really just my way to get into Hollywood and the film and television industry, never thinking it would go any further than that.
Yeah, I mean, but it went a lot further than that, it seems. So, with Robot Chicken, so that's a sketch show. So do you do storyboard for specific skits, or is it like an entire episode? Like, how does that work?
It was a bit of both.
Okay.
So we would get the script for the whole episode, and they would divvy out a sketch per board artist, but there weren't many. Sometimes it was me and like one other person. So sometimes just to make it easier, it'd be like, you get this episode, I'll take that one. But if we felt really close to something, like if I really knew how to draw a certain style, or it's like some pop culture reference I felt close to, I would say, I want that one. Anything Batman, I'm like, I got the Batman stuff. But then as the seasons continued, it got more elaborate, harder, but also the show got bigger, and so we got more board artists. I think we ended with like 4. But it was a very small, lean and mean studio. So Shadow Machine, and I guess that's also how you got into Moral Orel, is because it was a show that was also being animated by the same company. So I have a lot of questions about Moral Orel, which I assume you get a lot, because you were pretty creatively involved in that one compared to, I guess, Robot Chicken, because you were like writing, you were directing, you were doing a lot of different stuff. So I guess, first of all, how did the transition from Robot Chicken to Moral Orel happen? So completely unbeknown to me, they were making this show with these people from Mr. Show. HBO's Mr. Show were in-house under the same roof as Seth Green's show. Had no idea. I had no idea. All I had was this love for Mr. Show, and I get to Hollywood, and it kind of was as exciting as one would imagine. It was like celebrities everywhere, and there's a lot of talk about exciting things, and it was kind of a new planet for me. But then here are some of my absolute favorite performers and writers from Mr. Show, which is still, in my opinion, the greatest sketch comedy show ever made. And
I can't disagree.
I love every frame of that show, and I couldn't believe there's Dino, Scott, and Jay, and I'm like, what is my life? So I very casually found myself easing into their conversations, and because I'm storyboarding, it just transitioned from Robot Chicken, when that show wrapped, onto Moral Orel. They said, yeah, you're doing a good job, we're going to keep you on, and there's this show, Moral Orel, which I knew about because I'd been in the studio. I'd seen the animatics from last season, and because I came on season 2, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. And I loved these guys who were writing this masterpiece. And so because I'm boarding it, I'm there for the early conversations. And then Dino and I hit it off right away. A large part of that was because I knew his comedy. Not just Mr. Show, but like TV Funhouse, the Andy Carvey Show, and all that stuff. So, and early Conan. And so I was like, okay, I get you and your humor sensibilities, and we just kind of grooved really quickly. And so he would bring me on, and way more than I think most board artists are allowed. He would kind of bring me in early to see first eyes on a new draft. Like, hey, I'm writing this thing called Courtship. What do you think of this? And I was like, it was less, what do you think of this, and more just, do you have any thoughts, really casually, and I'd say, yeah, well, maybe this could be this, and I'd kind of give very trepidatious punch-up tips, maybe, I mean, but what about this? And so I was still fanboying out constantly, but that wore off, and then I was like, full-heartedly saying, I don't think that works, I do think this works, I love this, and we were kind of, I mean, it sounds too much to say writing it together. He's the writer, and whoever else was writing those scripts. But I would just throw in a little extra peppering with the boards and designs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then he started trusting me more to design characters and flat out just you come up with it, you think of it, just. Sometimes there wasn't even a joke, it would say joke to come, and then that became a joke. The famous joke to come joke.
Yeah, I know that.
And so it was a dream come true because I grew up loving the idea of the Dick Van Dyke Writer's Room.
Yeah.
That was my dream, and then here I am in kind of an alternative early 2000s version of that with these Mr. Show geniuses, so it was too much, and I just couldn't believe it, and every day I was pinching myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's this thing where I think with most shows there's more of a disconnect between the animators and the writers and the directors and all that stuff, but it sounds Moral Orel, from what it seems like the actors were involved in the writing and directing, the composer even, Mark Rivers, he was involved in the creative process.
Yeah.
So it's it seemed like a very kind of communal thing, which is kind of ironic because it was the satire of it, but it just seems like everybody there was very much involved in the show and believed in the show. And
yes.
Really.
There was a lot of love in that show. It was a very unconventional pipeline. Like you say, it was more of if you're in this house, your ideas matter.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much hierarchy division. At least I didn't see that. It was just whoever's got a funny joke, bring it. And Dino would say things like, if there's a season 3, I'll make you a director. And he did. Dino's many things, but a liar is not one of them. He kept his word, and he would just give people these promises that actually came true, and it was mind-blowing. So we felt I at least felt like we were one family, and it was so not other studios, which I've learned since. It's so weird. That was my first example to the studio system, and yet it is so not the case.
Yeah, and so with Moral Orel, and I think that's probably part of the reason why it still resonates after all these years, is because so many people understand it, not just the satire of it, but also it on a personal level, and all the characters and everything. So it's just, and I guess you've collaborated with a few of them after that since then, because Chris McKay, who directed Lego Batman and Renfield, and you were on those projects. So how much of the cast are you still kind of in contact with, or cast and crew, I should say?
Social media wise, I keep pretty close with people. I try to see them when I can. Now I'm in Vancouver with you, and it's a lot harder to see people, but I still manage to keep in touch via video chats and stuff like that. And just talked to McKay the other day, still keep in touch, and I'm working with Trisha Gum and Becky Van Cleve and some other people who worked on shadow projects. So we just it's a small community, stop motion, and animation is just a little bit bigger, but it's still very tiny, and you keep bumping into the same people. So it's pretty cool. And I do keep in touch with as many people as possible, because I don't want to say those were the glory days, but those were some amazing fun times, and those were the crew was insanely great. I've had the luck of having some great crews since, but that particular crew was unbelievable. Yeah,
and a lot of them have gone on to do pretty great things, because Chris McKay has his career, and Duke Johnston co-directed Anomalisa with Charlie Kaufman, and Starboard's Industry became a thing. So it's it just seems even though Moral Orel was kind of a very special project, it seems like a lot of the people who worked on it are still going on and doing great things. So I just want to know, you have projects that you're kind of working on and getting, spearheading, that you're kind of getting? I've
been trying to. Nothing's I can't plug anything right now, but I was trying to pitch several show ideas in Los Angeles when I was living there. I was there for 16 and a half years, so constantly pitching to the various networks, and nothing went all the way, but like made some progress, made some good connections, and then I moved to Vancouver, and it wasn't a complete reset, but it was a little bit of a setback. It's like, okay, kind of got to rebuild, and pitching here is a little different. So I'm still learning the ropes. I'm also going through the bureaucracy of being an immigrant, which is, oh my God, so time-inducing. Oh. So I've been, unfortunately, those things have been on the back burner a little more, but they're starting to come back to the front, which is good. So I have the full intention to make stop motion here somehow. I don't know how that is. I'm still learning the ropes, but I am very passionate about stop motion, and I just can't be done with it. I refuse. Even if it's independently out of my basement, somehow it's going to happen. So stop motion is a big one, and I still love sketch comedy. And I want to find a way to outsource or somehow make my own sketch comedy. Animated, preferably.
I was seeing that you did that a little bit in LA. So have you had opportunity to do that in Vancouver?
Well, the live action sketch. I have tried a few avenues here. I haven't quite found my niche. I'm still looking for the group that gets the Mr. Show vibe. That's the sweet spot, and I haven't quite found that yet. So I'm still hoping to find an outlet for my love of sketch, live action. But if it's animated, that's great too. But that's not going to stop me from writing sketch comedy and hopefully outsourcing it in some way. Because that's the cool thing about animation is you can almost have the script, the radio play recorded, the animatic, and you just need someone to animate it. It's quite easy to send it digitally and have them send it back to you. So I'm hoping to find a way for that to happen. But I'm not giving up.
The thing about Vancouver is there's a lot of great creatives here, but it's also very unorganized, and it's hard to find specific and gathering into everything. So I don't know, it is kind of a challenge. I identify that as somebody who went to film school here. So
I definitely, people warned me about that. They said that's going to be a factor, and I was like, well, then we'll have to overcome that too. And the comedy scene is a lot more improv based. And less sketch based. I'm just not. I don't know. It was hard to find that in LA too. People are busy. People love to cancel at the last second, and they're just so busy. And especially now, people have to work 2-3 jobs to be sustainable. So there's a lot less free time, which means you don't have that luxury to just hang out and riff. You gotta have a locked script and know what you're doing. So that's when animation is better sometimes because it's a little more controlled. So
exactly.
But I love the collaboration. I love riffing with people. Like I said, the Dick Van Dyke Writers Room. It's the dream. It's just bouncing ideas and just having one idea and then someone throws it back and they're like, that's so much better now.
So I guess going back to Moral Orel and some of the creative process that came from that. So what was kind of the time frame you had for storyboarding and animating an episode of the show? Was it very, very tight, or was it...
I have the schedule with me. I could actually look and find out exactly. In my head, my memory's not 100% on what it was. In my memory for Robot Chicken, I think it was 9 days to board an episode. It was tight. Television is way tighter. When I got to features, I was blown away by how laid back it was. We were playing foosball, and in TV, there's no time for even revisions. Sometimes you just got to get it right the first time. Especially in stop motion animation, you don't get revisions. So it's take one and only one. So those episodes were turned around real fast. I think they were about 9 days. It depended on how many people we had. But you get maybe one chance for revisions and boards, and then it would be on the air sometimes within a week or two. It was wild. One time I'll never forget, I was asked, I think it was by McKay, he said, he described what he needed. I drew it on a Post-it, gave it to the animator, they animated it, and I think it was on the air the next day. It was super tight. So that doesn't happen too often, but TV's fast.
Exactly. Well, I mean, look at South Park. They animated an episode in for 7 days. I don't even know how that happens. But
that's faster than I can go.
What were kind of your initial impressions of Moral Orel? I know you said that you liked it, but you weren't on season 1. So when you got the gig for season 2, were you super familiar with the show, or did you?
So when I first came out to LA, this is my first time in California. It was August 25th, 2005, and I went out there to like shake hands, hand out my resume and my reel, and meet people in person, and that went a long way. I think that's actually what got my foot in the door to get that internship later. So when I did that, McKay, I just met him. He was like one of the few people I met that day, and he was a master editor, and he said, "You want to see this thing we're cutting together?" And I said, "Sure." And it was season 1 of Moral Orel, and my jaw hit the floor, like instantly. From the opening, I was like, this show is made for me. You ever get that vibe? You know, like this is something, that piece of art is made for you, like a song. It's just like, I can't imagine a better song right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a better animated show. It spoke to everything that I love, comedically, ripping on organized religion, like, but also making a profound statement out of it. It looks two-dimensional, but it's actually very three-dimensional and like realized, you know, I love that. Bojack did the same thing.
Yep.
And so I like that kind of formula that so many other cartoons have benefited from, Rick and Morty, and you know, it looks very archetyped on the surface, and then you get to these really intense psychological emotions that are so motivated. And anyway, so that first episode blew me away. And then when they said they were considering me for the next season, they gave me a disc of season 1. So I went to where I was living at the time and just watched it like 5 times. I couldn't get enough of it. And I knew every character, and I wanted this so badly. I was like, I just want to work in this world, this space. And it was kind of a dream come true to get chosen to be on that. And again, it was only supposed to be for a few months. And then it just evolved to more time, and then more involvement, and then character designs, and the writing thing happened incidentally, and then directing. I mean, it was all kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. So actually going back to the way that it criticizes organized religion and stuff like that, was there any pushback from like religious organizations? Did they even know about the show?
I don't know. I'm sure the network, like Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, could tell you more about that. Yeah. Maybe Dino got some flack back. Yeah. I never heard anything except one time. One time I was in Key West, Florida on New Year's Eve, which I do not recommend, and I was wearing a shirt that said "Sit on My Faith," which is Joe's little shirt, and there was a bunch of guys that recognized it. They were like, "Is that from that show, that puppet show?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Is that the show that makes fun of Catholicism?" And I'm like, "Kind of." And the next thing I knew, I was about 10 feet backwards in a pile of garbage and was about to get my ass destroyed. And that was the only pushback I got. Literally pushed back. And I saw my own feet dangling in front of me, and his friends pulled him back, and it was New Year's. So that was it. That was the only pushback. But otherwise, people, I get mostly praise. Like, people are like, "This is amazing. Thank you for doing this." Yeah. And I think it was, people sometimes forget because so much time has passed, like, that was very new at the time. Now we have this, we have way more comfort as an audience to the anti-hero. Clay was kind of cutting edge, but I think now we have like Rick Sanchez and all these other characters that go really dark, and it's become a little more casual. Yeah, with Moral Orel, it's actually kind of interesting because I don't think that there was any banned episodes or anything because of that, but there was one of Frankenhole due to the Mother Teresa portrayal. So it's kind of funny that like the religious show did not get its episode banned, but the other one did. So what happened to that episode of Frankenhole, actually, the Mother Teresa one? I don't think they ever released it. To my knowledge, I mean, it's a good episode. I've seen it. It's great, and I find it funny because we also made fun of. Well, not made fun of. We mocked Gandhi. Yeah. But that same mockery got Clone High canceled, and we went, I think, way worse than what they did. Like, I love Gandhi and Clone High. Yeah, me too. Our Gandhi was definitely dicey by today's standards. Well, everything is, but the Mother Teresa episode. Mother Teresa, I wish it was released somewhere. It should be. I hope it gets the abstinence treatment and just finds its way online magically.
One more thing about religion, like you were saying earlier, is that a lot of the Moral Orel fans are religious because they identify with the religion and, like, the bad type of Christians, like the manipulative ones, that type of thing. So I guess, did you kind of think that when you were working on the show that this show would actually be celebrated by a lot of different Christians and people of different faiths?
I hoped it would.
Yeah.
I put my faith in, ironically, I put my faith in people's intellect to like get the joke.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, this is I mean, yeah, you can say it's making fun of religion. I mean, I just did, but it's not doing that as much as it is holding up the mirror. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a little bit more, it's highbrow.
Yeah.
But not wise people won't see that. It's the same people who won't see South Park for the brilliance that it has.
Yeah.
You know, they'll be like, it's just a bunch of kids swearing. It's like, there's a lot more going on. So I hope that people recognize what we're really saying. Yeah. Because, it is actually celebrating faith in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of good that can come from the show. It's not just kicking something down. It's separating the bad from the good, like you say. You know, there's a lot of good Christians out there and a lot of good Protestants, but this definitely pokes fun at some of the hypocrisy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like so much of it is just based around, Orel does lose his faith, but not in his religion. It's in like his father and like all the other people around him. So it's very much, I think the more you watch the show, the more you get that it's like, it's not about the religion itself, it's about the people and how they use that religion and, you know, all the different ways that it goes haywire and stuff like that. So,
it's an abuse of a good thing.
Yeah.
Because religion can be a wonderful thing. It can help a lot of people, and so often that's what I took the show for. It was immediately, even season 1 is like, it's an abuse of power.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have like a favorite episode and a favorite character?
It's always hard for me to pick just one, because you couldn't have season 3 without season 2 and 1. So
that's true.
I like 2 for its silliness. It was a lot of follies that were more cartoony, and Turn the Other Cheek is one of my absolute favorites, because I love, I don't know, just the cartooniness of it all. It's all very silly, and I mean, there's a lot of silly episodes, but that one stands out the most. From the opening with the record, you know, there's a lot of like fun things like the Viewmaster and the mechanical thing that punches him, which I got to design that. That was fun.
That would be awesome.
I think in the script it was just like a machine that punches him somehow, you know? Or Rube Goldberg-esque. So, you know, it was kind of fun to kind of like think of how this could be made. I even thought about making it in real life. But then season 3 is like, you know, incredible, like masterful filmmaking or television making, and I think Grounded might be my favorite episode. Grounded is a good
one. Like, it's an underrated one.
It moves so fast, and then it takes its time at that last dream sequence. You know, it really, of all the messages, it's one of my favorites. That like Orel is a church, and it's a beautifully profound episode. It looks good. It's hilarious. It's got everything. It checks all the boxes for me.
I absolutely agree. That's a good one. And
characters. It's hard again to pick just one. I mean, Clay is an obvious choice, but I think he's the most complex character in the series.
Me too.
He's amazingly well written because his actions are motivated by deep psychology, and like it's a very layered character. I love that. But then I also love a punching bag with no depth, and that would be Doey. Doey is just a silly, I mean, he has some depth, but he's not Clay. You know, he's kind of you could punch him in the face and he'll come back and wave and love you. And there's something really fun about that cartoon character with just the flattest of depths. So that's really fun.
Speaking about Doey, let's talk about Abstinence for a bit, since that was kind of, I don't know what you can hold as, like, I guess your biggest achievement on the show, but I would say that that's definitely up there, that you had this entire episode that was recorded by the cast, and then the show got canceled, and then you and another person, who was it?
Morgana Ignis.
Okay, yes. You two were both putting this show together at the same time. You were working on Robot Chicken, and like just to preserve the legacy of the show and keep it alive and have another episode. So, could you tell us a little bit about how that came to be and Abstinence and everything?
Well, I told you that Dino promised some people that they could be directors in season 3, and he said, if there's a season 3, I'll let you direct. So come season 3, man of his word, he said, all right, which script do you like the most? And I loved Abstinence because it was the most ridiculous. It was not really part of the seriousness of season 3, even though I love that. I like a good ridiculous episode for its absurdity, and I thought, oh, this is great, I can really do something with this direction wise. So I was all over it. I boarded it, we directed the records like you said, had everything kind of ready to go, and it was, I believe, the head of department meeting for Abstinence when we got the call that Moral Orel was going to be axed. And so that episode had to go because we were allowed to do like 7 more episodes, and we could only get so much story out. And that episode, you don't really need it for the Moral Orel, I guess, wrap it up in a bow. Like it didn't need to be part of it, so it was kind of thrown by the wayside. And I forget who mentioned it. It might have been Dino who suggested that Morgana and I complete it. Morgana was doing those little sequences at the end of the episode, the stop motion.
Oh, right, yeah.
Those were done by her, and she was helping out in other ways on the floor and just kind of in the studio, and we were good friends and still are. And there was just enough time of hiatus where the studio wasn't using the lights or the stages, and I think this was right before the next season, or no, Robot was going on, and then something else was coming up. I think it was Type Maximum was the next thing to come up at Shadow. And so there was just enough time that we could complete this, but we had to go fast. And that just meant working all night, sleeping in the studio sometimes, doing a little bit of this in the sinks, in the bathrooms, and like just trying not to be disgusting. And yeah, we did it. We were up at 4 a.m. with the music blasting. Like Morgana would be doing her shot, and I'd be doing mine, and it was a blast, and it was so hard. I was exhausted. I was mentally exhausted, and there's some shots that look terrible. Like, I know it's not pretty. It's an ugly, gritty version of what should have been, but that was what we could do. And it's like some shots, I'm not a lighting guy, I'm not a DP or DOP at all, and I'm spending like 4 hours setting up the shot. I don't know what I'm doing, and that was it. That was the best we could do. So it was like, we don't have any time for reshoots, this is it, just go. True labor of love. And it was so fun. It was so fun.
Yeah, that's good that it was so fun. I imagine it was also pretty stressful, but yeah, it was just such like a thing. I think it goes to show your love for the show that you had like none of the puppets left. You had just like pieces of garbage or something you were working with in order to like put them together.
Yeah, we got boxes from a local grocery store, and Morgana and Bridget Dash, who was also helping at Shadow at the time, she and Morgana built the puppets, and we already had like the head of department meeting, which I was directing at the time, so we knew exactly the breakdown of what we needed. Like, all right, we're gonna need an ice cream truck with this gag on the side, and we're gonna need these things. So yeah, we were so close, and I was like, we gotta tip this thing over the net. This is such a good episode. It's so ridiculous, and of all the episodes to be done with that aesthetic, perfect. Yeah, because you're forgiving because it's so ridiculous already. So yeah, it's obviously I would have done things a lot differently, maybe tweak the f-stop on a few things and make it brighter or darker, but all in all, I'm happy of what we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're right, the fact that it's not as much of a serious episode and it's more cartoony, it like lends itself to that style, and it was a good one to choose, I guess, to like do and like cut, but also come back to life in a certain way. So I was actually I have a colleague on YouTube named Media Mementos. I don't know if you've seen any of his Moral Orel videos. And he did a animatic of Narcissism, the last episode, where
I could see that.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you'd seen that, and like, do you have any like thoughts on fans putting together the, I guess, other remaining lost episodes, like Raped is another one, and like if that ever became, I don't think YouTube would like that, but in some sort of format.
I think it's fine. I think this is like almost like a philosophy of an artist. At what point is it yours, and who does it belong to? Obviously there's the legal answer to that. It legally belongs to Turner or whoever, but as far as completing unfinished works like that, that's kind of cool. I think when you give it off to fans who know the show really well and they complete it in a way that's respectful, that's cool. I don't think Dino would have a problem with that. I don't know. You can ask him. But I personally think that's kind of cool, that fans can kind of carry the baton like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in terms of Dino, like, you released, 2 more scripts with Raped and Narcissism, but do you know of any other scripts that exist, and would he be I know this is probably a question for him more so, but do you know if there's any more Moral Orel coming out in that regard?
Probably not. Before Orel was kind of the test to see what people wanted, and the ratings just weren't there. It was like, okay, we were hoping maybe to. I don't know if it was ever going to come back, but it was a potential. Like Invader Zim does these little specials once in a while, you know, and they did, and I thought that's kind of what we were doing. You know, maybe a prequel, then a sequel, or little specials, but it just wasn't getting the same attention. Might be different today, but I don't know. It's one of those things they say don't get back with your exes, you know. Just maybe just appreciate it. It's good the way it is, and that's enough. I just think it's, if you try again to reopen that, it may not be what it used to be, and people's expectations will never be met. Yeah.
And I think actually if it did come back today, it would have more of a fan base, because like the community of people around Moral Orel has just gone up and up and up. Like I watched it around the time before Orel was first coming on the air, and back then there was like 2 YouTube videos on it, and now like it's insanely, like there's so much content about Moral Orel, so people have really rediscovered it, and it's become this huge cult show. So I mean, I don't know, were you kind of surprised when like a whole lot of people, I guess, came out of the woodwork and kind of started showing their love for the show, or was it?
Yeah, it still blows my mind how many people not only like the show, but they get it.
Yeah.
Like they really get it. You get it. And so many people have shown they really understand what Dino is trying to say, and I think that's great, because I was always worried about that even at the time of it being made. Like, are people going to be smart enough to get this? I hope so. And the fact that it resonates with younger people today is so cool, and it's a true testament to how good the characters are and those stories. Like, it's more relevant today, I think, and I think that's great.
Well, because like at the time, Adult Swim canceled it for the kind of depth and like depressing angle of it. But since then, you were talking about Bojack, and like Bojack became a huge success, doing kind of the same thing that Moral Orel did. So I feel like Bojack maybe opened the door for that type of thing to be more acceptable around audiences, and not just, you know, see like funny cartoon horse or whatever. Like I guess there's a lot more people who are more open to that idea today. So I mean, I think that maybe the animated tragicomedy genre can live on a lot more fruitfully now than it did back then.
Definitely agree. And not just animation, but like Breaking Bad taught suburbanite basic people how to think really dark thoughts. You know, like, and not knocking Breaking Bad, I love it, but like it's another example of so many shows that we have, Succession, and like really bad behavior that is motivated, and you can almost justify it. And Bojack, great example, and Rick Sanchez and Rick and Morty, and so many things now. I think Clay, he wasn't the birth of that. I mean, there was tons of Archie Bunker, you know. Archie predated Bunker. Anything. There's so much good television prior to Moral Orel, but I think it's becoming more popular to see it in animation form, especially from such a cute aesthetic. You know, those dolls are adorable, and like it's made to look like David and Goliath for a reason. So when you have that contrast, you know, it's not, in no way is it gratuitous. It's very thoughtful.
Probably the episode you were most involved in, other than Abstinence, would probably be Honor, if I'm not mistaken. So, I don't know, did you write that beforehand, or was it Dino's idea to first with the script, or like how did that episode kind of come to fruition?
So what happened there was, when you're boarding an episode, it's a lot like being an animator or an actor. You stay in the sequence a long time. Especially like boarding and animating are similar in that, like, I could be in one sequence or even an episode for weeks to months. You know, so I just finished Nature, and my mind, can I swear? Go ahead. My mind was fucked. I was fucked in the brain from Nature, and it really destroyed
You're not
me.
the only one.
And I was like crawling, you know, you're crawling when you're boarding things, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm about to draw Orel shooting a bear, and like this, and then Clay drinks the alcohol, and I'm like half crying while I'm doing this, and I'm like, this is really hard for me because I have my own issues, and I'm seeing anyway. So I'm coming off of Nature, and I'm a mess, and I thought I would like to get into writing. This is my first time writing ever, and I bought Final Draft, and I knew basic script structure because of the formatting, because of the scripts. So I just took a complete stab at writing a spec script, and I called it Honor Thy Father. And it was a little different than what came out in the episode, but it was the basic idea that Orel is having trouble honoring his dad and meets Danielle and all that. And I asked Dino very cheekishly, I was like, would you mind just giving me feedback as a writer? I just want to know if this is good writing. And his response was mind-blowing. He said, not only is this good, but maybe we can use this. And then he gave me his feedback like a writer. Very cool, very professional. Gave me his like revision, so we upped it to a second draft, third draft. And then he said, if there's a season 3, we'll make this. And then when we got the axe from Adult Swim and we were allowed to finish so many more episodes, he said, I think that episode that you wrote, now we wrote, is the one that can end it all. Like, that's a good series finale. And we made a few tweaks to squeeze in that little sequence at the end where we kind of show where Orel goes. And I definitely want to emphasize co-wrote. I co-wrote that with him, and I co-directed with McKay. Like, I was very, very lucky to have these people helping me through this very new process, writing and directing, and these were my first time doing either. So I was so lucky, and I'm really happy the way Honor came out. And the things that he changed were so much more true to the show. I was trying to have this redemption for Clay in Orel's eyes. Like, I had the smoke and mirror, like when Clay looks over his shoulder and says, I love you, but he's talking to Danielle, like that was in the first draft. But I had this idea, I had it where Orel actually loves his dad at the end, where he is kind of naive and believes his dad. But what Dino did that's more true to the show is Orel kind of gets wise. And he sees right through his dad's facade, and he knows his dad is hopeless by the end of Honor, which I think was a big turning point.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's pretty kind of crazy that it started off as a spec script, and then it turned into an episode, and then it turned into the finale. So that's like, pretty high honor, like to, use the pun, but yeah.
I mean, I pinched myself so much out of a callus. Like, it was just constant, like, are you kidding me? Really? We're doing this? I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. And then it happened, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, so with a lot of the later episodes, actually, season 3 being as dark as it is, a lot of the later episodes, I think, do see some of the characters going on redemption arcs. Like, there's, I don't think Clay gets redeemed in that episode, but Coach Stopframe to an extent does. And, Abstinence, Dowie gets a redemption after Trigger. And then with, Reverend Putty and Narcissism too. So, like, I guess if the show went on more, would there be more of a redemption arc for the characters? Do you think?
I think in a long enough timeline, you do become more forgiving for characters. I mean, that's kind of how, I'm going to get really preachy, but that is life. Like, everyone who's done any wrong to you probably has a reason. If you knew their story, you'd probably think a little different about them. So that's just kind of it. You unravel a little longer, and you get to know someone a little deeper, and you go, oh, that's why. Okay. Not always, but a lot of cases. So I think there's redemption regardless of Moral Orel. Just in life, you just redeem people the longer you get to know them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and that's one of the things that's so amazing about Moral Orel too. Is it's like, Clay is such a horrible person, but at the same time, I'm like crying for him when I see his childhood and passing, and it's just like it's so painful. But that's part of the beauty of the show, I think, and it's just it's amazing. So I guess, how did the crew get prepared to wrap up the show once it got axed? Was there like a big scramble to get everything done, or like, I know some of the props you own because I've seen another interview with you, but like, how did, I guess, that happen and that process?
It was kind of a day-to-day operation. We weren't sure what the future was at first. Like, we were told we were done, and there were tears and high emotions, and then we were told we could do X amount more episodes, so that was good. But in that window, it was a little chaotic because people were emotionally sad about the show ending, but also like, okay, now that that's a wrap on this character, what do we do with this? And there was one day in particular where some of the stuff ended up in the garbage, and that that wasn't cool. And they were just following orders. That's totally fine. It was what we're supposed to do because it's the property of someone else. We had to destroy these things. So these sets and puppets ended up in somebody's house for a long time, and just kind of like an extra storage for most of the show's assets. And then they just somehow dispersed to various people in the crew. Like a magical fairy just sprinkled them throughout the world, and hopefully they're still around because they're beautiful. They shouldn't be destroyed. I mean, I understand not monetizing them, but that should definitely not monetize them, but they shouldn't be destroyed. That's just a shame.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't destroy Howdy Doody just because that's off the air.
There you go. Yeah, and I guess with those going out to people with before Orel, did some of that come back from people's storages, like their personal space, or was that all from the ground up?
That's a good question. I think they tried to salvage what they could, but so much of it was gone. Yeah. So much of it. I mean, they had to rebuild a lot of the sets and puppets. I'm pretty sure. There might have been a few things lying around, but I wasn't around. I wasn't as involved in before Orel. I was mostly just boarding it, and I was an assistant animator. Because I wanted to, and they said sure. But I wasn't as involved in the development of it, so I'm not sure where those puppets came from. It's a good question.
Beyond rape, abstinence, and narcissism, like what were kind of some of the plot lines for some later episodes that never got I mean, I obviously know that in Before Orel, he meets his grandfather, which was supposed to be an arc in season 3. So I guess beyond that, like what else was there? As
I recall, Orel was going to hide his dying grandfather in his room, and he was going to care for him against his dad's wishes. And it was going to be almost like a sitcom where you're, like, are you hiding your grandfather in there? No, Dad. Like, I think that or maybe I dreamt that, but
that sounds
about right. And he was trying to keep him, like, he was slowly entering death, and Orel had to be the only one to, like, care for him. It's traumatizing. And then I think when his grandfather died, Orel was definitely going to dip into pure atheism. Yeah. And go maybe into a goth space. And
I remember reading that somewhere.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if that was an episode thing or a whole season, but I know Dino liked the idea that losing his grandfather and having to take care of him, and he's like, his grandfather is kind of a symbol, so when he loses that, it all just shakes everything. It rattles his whole faith.
Yeah. And I mean, do you have any like personal ideas that you had for the show if it went on to like season 4, season 5?
Oh man, I say this all the time. I could have worked on that show for 10 seasons easily.
I could have watched it for 10 seasons.
I would have loved to see Orel grow up and start going through those problems. Like actually see a stop motion puppet, slowly change season to season. That would have been amazing. I don't think that's ever been done. I've never seen a stop motion puppet age, so that would have been cool. And Christina, bring her back. Yeah. And I'd like to know more about the heron. The heron in nature.
Oh, right.
Like, see that come back in some way. Would have liked to have seen more of Jay voicing Awake, Buddha. That was interesting. I wanted to see more of that, actually. Orel dipping into other religions. I thought that was fascinating.
I really liked that episode a lot.
Yeah, it's... was it released in 3D? Either it was supposed to be or it was, but there's a lot of like 3D effects in that episode, like the bone being thrown at a camera and stuff, and I feel like that was a thing they were trying to do. It was the 3D episode. Anyway, I would have liked to see more of Orel dipping into other religions and questioning things more profoundly from an adult level. Yeah. But there's something sweet about not knowing. Yeah. Just knowing that he's going to be okay is enough. Like, we get that sweet little ending in Honor, and it's like, oh, good, I can rest easy. Okay, he's going to be all right. Yeah. Even though he'll be living for the rest of his life. Yeah.
You actually talked about Jay, who voiced Buddha, and I asked you this question before, and if you don't know Jay Johnston, who's probably best known for Coach Stopframe on the show, and he voiced Jimmy Pesto at Bob's Burgers and did a bunch of other stuff. He was arrested for storming the Capitol in 2021, and so he's kind of, I guess, a little bit blacklisted from Hollywood now. So I just kind of wanted, if it's okay with you, to like go into that a little bit and what it was like working with Jay. And
I loved working with Jay. Mm-hmm. he's as funny on screen as he is off. He is that guy. He is hilarious. He was very nice to me. We even tried to work on a project together a few times. Like, he had some ideas and he needed some boards or something. It never happened, but he was very kind and he was always funny. He was a bit of a wild child, and I don't mean for what he got busted for, but like, he drove around, I'm pretty sure the car he drove was illegal, and he was just he's a wild person, but he was always very kind and professional, and he was good at what he did. Like, when we needed jokes, he had them. When we needed voices, he had them. He was good on the projects I worked with him. And regarding the Capitol, I unfortunately don't know the details of that. I was shocked and I'm sad by it, but I also just hope he's okay.
Yeah, and are you in contact with him at all? Okay. Yeah.
No, we didn't have that kind of friendship. Last time I saw Jay was years and years ago, but I have good memories of working with him, and I love I miss his comedy. Yeah. Like, he's still one of the funniest people I've ever met. Yeah. And
it's like, I don't know the guy personally, but like, I've been a big fan of a lot of the work he's done over the years. So I mean, I can understand why it's kind of a difficult thing. I appreciate you being candid about that.
Sure, and I'm not, in no way am I making an opinion of politics or anything like that. At least not in this discussion. But shocked, and I just hope he's okay, because I really, really liked him, and I thought he was funny. I mean, those are two good qualities.
And he's very integral to Moral Orel, and it was a huge part of that show and why it was so good. Like, Coach Stopframe, I think, is one of my favorite characters. Like, yeah? Cool.
He's deep.
It's a very, complicated thing, because it's kind of like you're saying with Dowie and Clay. I was like, one's like two-dimensional and one's three-dimensional. I think Coach Stopframe kind of has that thing where it's like, you think he's two-dimensional, but then like, the more you go on, you see like how he develops and like how he's trying to manipulate people, and like, it's pretty, it's great in kind of a fucked up way.
Yeah, and that's kind of the magic formula, is you seemingly have this archetype, a stereotype or whatever type, and then you find out that they are so much more, and their motives, like I said, the longer you spend time with them, the more you see these incredible motivations, and you're like, oh, it all fits, like, that's why they act that way. That's great. I love that, especially the dumber they are on the surface. And again, Bojack did that really well with like Todd, like seemingly stoner guy on the couch, and then he's profoundly interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll move on from Moral Orel now to what was the second project of that team, which was Frankenhole. Yeah. So, or how long was it until you found out that Dino was getting another show? Was it during Moral Orel's third season after it got axed, or was it afterward? Or
it was. Dino and I used to hang out on the weekends, and he would just talk about other ideas. And there were a lot of concepts he was floating around. And I don't remember at what point I heard about Frankenhole, but it was what it is. It's the idea that Victor Frankenstein has access to time and space. Yeah. And it's essentially Rick Sanchez. He's a mad genius who's bored with life. Yeah. And he can do anything. He's Dr. Seuss, Cat in the Hat, Doctor Who kind of. And anyway, mad geniuses who are bored are kind of fun. Yeah. And it's also Dino being bored with things. He gets very bored because he's brilliant, and also just kind of whatever, who gives a shit, we're all gonna die. So that just made sense. Like, that show, I forget when he mentioned it, but I heard it, and I heard Frankenstein's Monster and Transylvania and all that, and I was like, I'm in. But not Transylvania. Where were they? Somewhere in it was Transylvania.
It wasn't somewhere in unidentified part of Eastern Europe, wasn't it?
Right, somewhere in Eastern Europe. Thank you. Oh man, I gotta rewatch those. Yeah, somewhere in Eastern Europe. So, yeah, he was loosely talking about this, and then he was like, okay, the network likes Dino. That's a good thing. Laszlo and all of them at Adult Swim liked Dino, and they wanted to do another project, so that's great. Yeah. And then it was like, one random day, he very casually just said, yeah, if this gets made, we'll bring you on as director. And I thought, okay. And I got tired of pinching myself. I was just like, whatever, just along for the ride. And I was so excited, but I try not to get overly excited until it happens, and it happened. But it was such a casual, organic process. It wasn't like I don't remember a day where something was signed or like an official email. It was just kind of loosely talked about. And then one day I'm standing in front of the crew and I'm giving the direction of the day, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm directing the season of Moral Orel or Frankenhole. Like it's officially here. Just so casually happens. It was again, it was like a dream.
I mean, for me personally, I'm a big fan of Frankenhole. I think that it hasn't gotten the same sort of resurgence that Moral Orel has in recent years. And I do think some people kind of compare it unfavorably to Moral Orel, just in the sense that Moral Orel had all these deep themes and all that stuff, which weren't, I mean, they were present in Frankenhole, but they wasn't really getting into the drama of it. So, but with Frankenhole, I kind of felt that maybe that was a very conscious decision, because that's what got Orel canceled in the first place by Adult Swim. So I don't know. I guess going into Frankenhole and the creative process of it, was there a little bit more restrictions, or did you feel like you could, or did Dino and the crew feel like they couldn't explore some of the concepts that they had, or?
It's hard to say, and I don't want to say verbatim this is what happened, but this is my opinion, this is my theory about Dino's mentality to Frankenhole. Because we got canceled because of episodes like Alone and the heavy tone of it all, I think he was more interested in just making people laugh, and also playing that random card that was so big, like Tim and Eric was going on, and Adult Swim was really big into the random stuff, and less focus on the narrative, and let's just have fun, because a lot of those jokes in Frankenhole are just inside jokes. I don't even understand some of the jokes. There's still some I'm like, do I get this? I think I do. But it's really just more weird and wacky, and less charming, because Moral Orel was like bright, saturated colors, really charming, plush-looking characters, and this is like dark, muted. And Dino is obsessed with Frankenstein. And he loves horror in general, especially the black and whites and the classics. So I think he was really excited to just go into that full on, which Moral Orel really couldn't do too much. So this was an exciting way for us to explore the classics of horror and just kind of have fun with the silliness of it all. And it was way more absurd, I think. So it was, I mean, less rewarding in my opinion, because Moral Orel just had that incredible story. But this was just kind of a fun time.
I also heard that he told the network he wanted them to air the show out of order, because that's a big theme of Frankenhole, is that the time differences kind of like, it fucks with your brain, but it also like goes into all these different things. So do you know if there was any truth to that? Like,
I don't, but I could see that being true, because that's kind of what we were doing in season 3 of Moral Orel. We were playing with the time and the release of everything. But on your note, I think there's also something really freeing about Frankenhole, because it's less restricted to all the story limitations, and it's just anything can happen. You think the episode's about this? Who cares about that? It's over. The guy's got access to everything. You can put wings on a shark, whatever. So I think that was kind of also a response to trying to make it all perfectly fit, and now it's just, fuck it, let's have fun.
So with Moral Orel, we talked a lot about what happened to those puppets, the ones that survived anyway. Do you have any idea what happened to the Frankenhole puppets? Because from my understanding, Frankenhole wasn't exactly canceled by Adult Swim. It was more so not renewed, because I never got any sort of like notification that it wasn't coming back or anything. So I don't know. Do you have any idea what happened to that stuff?
My guess is they're floating around Starburns Industries somewhere. A lot of the sets and puppets from Moral Orel made their way back to that studio. So I'm guessing that's where everything is from Frankenhole too.
I was gonna say, like, is there anything? Clay's study does have kind of that Frankenhole vibe to it in some regards. So was that reused in any capacity on that show?
I don't think so. But what that was is Dino wanted Clay's study to be German Expressionist. And it's not quite German Expressionist, because it's still very symmetrical, but it was supposed to be this terrifying place for Orel to go, where everything's a little off and scary, like an ominous study where your dad beats you would be, So it's just, things are just a little off in there. That's what that is. But on Frankenhole, we went full German Expressionist, and it was lots of fun. That was so freeing and cool to just see that done correctly.
So and in terms of like Frankenhole being not renewed, when did you kind of know that you weren't going to be coming back to that show?
kind of felt that way towards the end of season 2. There were a few episodes that were production killers, and I was worried about them from the very get-go. From reading them, I was like, this is going to hurt our production in every way. And by the end of the season, tensions were very high. There were a lot of conflicts, and it was feeling less and less like a smooth operation. It was just trying to get it done, get to the finish line, which productions can totally do and then get renewed. But I don't know, it didn't feel like we were going to go past this season. I can't recall at what point I knew, but when I found out, it wasn't quite as devastating as when we found out about Moral Orel.
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, that was fun. Thank you.
And the Frankenhole discussion, favorite episode, favorite character, favorite joke, even if none of those comes to mind.
Let's see. Favorite episode. I am quite fond of Belushi.
That is a great one, yeah.
That was so fun. I got to direct David Cross while he was shooting Todd Margaret in London. I was there with Dino, and we did the records, and it was... He's great. He's so good. He's naturally funny. He can say anything, and it's a stitch. So that was a lot of fun. Also, Heal Hitler.
That's probably my favorite.
Is it? Okay. I mean, I'm picking mine, but we got to pick which episodes we wanted, and I really wanted those two. Yeah. And Scott Adsit killing it again as Adolf Hitler. It was so funny, and it was so hard not to just burst out laughing while they're recording. And I'm trying to keep it together, and my God. And then favorite joke, I really like the non sequitur jokes. There's that moment when Dan Harmon is voicing Dr. Henry Jekyll, and it's in, what episode is that, Jealousy? It's in this moment when Victor and Jekyll are having a back and forth, and it's very vaudeville. And he turns into Hyde and he draws something, and then Victor just says, "You drew a picture of a tree." Oh God, that's so funny! I can barely get it out. We recorded I don't know how long that was, but it was just Jeff Davis and Dan Harmon, who were very close, just riffing, and we had to stitch together something, to make it. It was 7 minutes, and we had to get it down to 55 seconds. So we got this great back and forth, and I love that joke so much. Just you drew a tree. Why is that funny? I don't know. It's fun.
It's probably funnier because you can't explain why it's funny.
Those are great. There's so many weird jokes in that show. Yeah.
Just what is so off the wall. But it's great. I really do love that.
And there's weird jokes that aren't even out loud laughs. It's an internal what is that laugh? Why is Dracula that way? It's because Dino cast his friend, and we liked what he brought, which is just this weird take on Dracula, and it became dorkier and dorkier, and it was really fun to see him mess up his words and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Dino does cast a lot of his friends and family in his shows. His daughter was Shapey, and then the fuck.
Block.
Yeah, Block. From, but also in Frankenhole, it was
Igor.
Igor, yes. Yeah. So I don't know. Would you, I guess, collaborate with Dino again if he came out with another show idea? I don't know if he's working on it.
Yeah, I would. I love working with Dino, and he is chaos, but he is a chaos that I feel like I understand. Mm-hmm. There's a great Peter Blood song. Peter Blood did some of the music for Moral Orel and Frankenhole. And there's a good song, if you can find it online, called Dino Stamatopolous. And look at the lyrics, and it spells everything. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I love working with Dino, even though there were times, especially on Frankenhole, where we weren't quite seeing eye to eye, but it was still great, and I love the guy. So yeah, I totally collaborate with him. Okay, cool. And I guess going off from that and the stuff that you did after Shadow Machine, was that when you was Frankenhole after that when you kind of moved out of Shadow Machine and kind of went into different pastures? So it was, season 1 was done at Shadow, and then Dino, Dan Harmon, James Fino, and Joe Russo created Starburns Industries, and that's where we started season 2. Right, yeah. Then season 2 came to an end, and after that, there wasn't anything lined up, and I was like, well, it was weird. At that time, I didn't want to become any more involved in stop motion. I thought, okay, this has gone too far. I'm trying to make a 2D animated show. Yeah. That's what I really want to do. So I re-steered my career to try to do that. Mm-hmm. So I focused on pitching tons of show ideas to the various networks and streams and all that. And while I was doing that, I got involved in features, completely incidentally. So I did the Lego movies, and then I went back to television, did Bojack, and then more Lego movies, and then I did Angry Birds, and the more Lego movies, and I'm pitching all the while trying to make 2D happen. Yeah. And then the pandemic hit, and that's when I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I love stop motion. Yeah. I think actually that's my biggest love, is stop motion and sketch comedy. So that kind of realigned my focus to go back to stop motion. So even though there's hardly any stop motion in Vancouver, I'm still really hoping to make a way to make that happen in some way.
Yeah. I think there is more of, I guess, appreciation for it now, especially with everything like CG and stuff like that. When I watched like the Chicken Run 2 on Netflix last year, it's like, oh, this is so refreshing to see this compared to a lot of the stuff that's being made now. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would be, I think Shadow Machine is still doing Robot Chicken, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's Stupid Buddy.
Oh, okay.
Stupid Buddy, that was Seth Green and Harvatine and Towner. They were two animators at Shadow. They teamed up and created Stupid Buddy, and they're doing quite well. And they've got Super Mansion, and or they used to have Super Mansion and a bunch of other stuff. They've been doing a lot of stop motion animated shorts, or short format stuff. Yeah. And Shadow just did Guillermo's Pinocchio.
Oh, okay.
And Shadow Machine's now up in Portland. It's not in Los Angeles. That's all for the two-dimensional stuff, or 2D stuff, and then the Portland location is just stop motion. Yeah. So a lot of that crew moved to Portland. Some of them are from there. So Portland's got a big stop motion hub, and it's growing. And I feel like there's something about the Pacific Northwest that really beckons stop motion. I can't put my finger on what it is. I think it has something to do with all the tactile craftiness of people here. Like, there's a lot of artists that know how to use their hands. Yeah. There's also a lot of tech here, but like, so many people know how to craft and make puppets, but there's just no hub in Vancouver to make it animate, so at least not many. So I'm hoping to change that.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to aspire to change in Vancouver. So beyond, I guess, Moral Orel and Frankenhole, what other stop motion projects have you done? I believe you did the Community episode, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I boarded that, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was boarding on Community. That was at Starburns. Yeah. That was like one of the first things they did, actually. Yeah, that was fun. That was really cool. Those stages were huge, and it's a beautiful episode.
Yeah, I like that episode a lot.
It's really amazing. I love that show. I was a huge fan of that. I've been so lucky to get on these cool things. Don't always. Sometimes you just get on something and it's work, and it's like, okay, well, I'll do a good job and I'll get the paycheck, and then I'll go on to the next thing. But then sometimes you get the Community episode. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's really great. And even some of like stuff you've done since then, I guess it's been mostly storyboarding.
Storyboarding is the backbone of my work, but I'm trying to get back to directing. I love writing. I'm trying to get into writing more and more, and I've done a lot of character design. Yeah. A lot of drawing, but a lot of punch-up. I did punch-up on all the Lego movies, and I love just, whether I'm credited as a writer or not, I love writing comedy. Yeah. And I think I have a knack for it.
Yeah, so I would say you worked on Moral Orel. I can't really argue with that. So
that was a great training ground. I mean, you're learning from the best of the best. Yeah. Like, that was the most unbelievable, perfect place to just understand the mechanics of comedy and why this works. And just being in the room while these guys are bouncing ideas, just cannot believe that happened.
It must have been a very special experience, and
one of the best I've got.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what are you the most proud of out of all the things you've worked on? What would you say? I'm
proud of Abstinence, that it got finished. Yeah. Like I said, I would change a lot, but we were learning so much, and it was like just the labor of love, the fact that it got done. And it's okay. it's done. We did our best. That was amazing. Can't believe we did that. And then the first Lego movie, even though the other ones, the follow-ups, were a lot of fun too, but that first one, we didn't really know what we had, and neither did WB. Yeah. So it was just fun. And it was with some people I'd worked with before, but a lot of new people. I met Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and I didn't know what they looked like. I just heard their names, and I was like, what do you guys do on this? And they're like, we're the directors. And I felt like an absolute ass. Like, they're great. Working with them was great. McKay, working with familiar crew on that was a lot of fun. So much fun. So that was a great experience. First season of Bojack was kind of similar. We didn't really know what this was. I wasn't involved in any way like punching that up or tweaking ideas. Like that script was locked, but it was perfect. And first few episodes were, I believe, written for the network, and then it became a Netflix show, like episode 4. So it's like episode 4 onward, it was like, this is airtight.
You can tell there's
a shift.
Yeah, there's a big shift.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of Bojack and Moral Orel, like, did you know going in that there was going to be these big shifts in tone, or was that just kind of happenstance?
No, it just keeps finding me.
Yeah.
Moral Orel I thought was going to be season 1, and I thought, this is cute, this is really funny, it's brilliant, I get it, cool. And then it just got more profound, and I thought, this is so cool, I've never seen this before. And Bojack, it's a little bit more at the forefront. Like they kind of set it up to be darker.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't think it shifts quite as much as Moral Orel, where that kind of.
Well, Bojack, it shifts like within the first season, and Moral Orel, it takes like 3 seasons.
But they keep pushing us to like these characters, like Clay. I mean, like you said, there's something redeeming about him, even though he's a terrible person. But like Bojack pushed us so far, and it's like, I don't know if I like this character anymore. I think I do, because I care about him.
Yeah.
If you care about somebody, you want them to succeed, and you're almost questioning like why you are holding on to them. You're like, it's like a toxic relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I like that. I mean, it pushes our boundaries of comfort, and I love that. So I had no idea. And it was kind of fun to be working on it and experiencing these things before everyone else. Like, I'd read the script for season whatever on Moral Orel, and probably, alone. I read Alone, and I was like, oh my God, we're doing this? We're really going to do this. And I thought, there's no way.
Yeah, that's what I was watching Alone for the first time. Like, how did this get aired? In a good way. But.
I love the shows when I say that. Like Ren and Stimpy, I'm like, how did this get through?
Yeah.
Like the walrus at the door with the horse and Ren and Stimpy, you're like, how did that get past? But I love that stuff. So not all of it doesn't always work, but there's some examples that I've been lucky to be a part of.
Yeah. And I guess you talked a little bit about it before, but I guess to get more definitive answer, like, what brings you up to Canada and that whole shift?
Well, Jay storming the Capitol, I had to get out of there.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, to be honest, politics is part of it, but it's not the whole enchilada. It's my wife and I love nature. Not just the Moral Orel episode, but
I was going to make that joke.
We
so thanks for beating
saved
me to
the time. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. She grew up in Oregon, California border, and we wanted more nature in our lives. And Los Angeles was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful for that chapter. I love the friends I made, still do. But it didn't click completely for us. It wasn't a home, but it was a great place to be at the time. So we wanted something that felt a little more familiar for us. And I've always loved Canada. I've always loved Canadian people and culture. And we grew up in Chicago, but we occasionally had someone cross over and like, hey, we're from Canada, or like I went to Toronto for 48 hours. I loved it. And I don't know, I love Canadian television. I love lots of things. So I just felt like this could be a possibility. And then we found out that Vancouver was becoming like the 3rd biggest entertainment hub in North America. And we like the Pacific Northwest. We love rain. Yeah. I'm a little pale, if you haven't noticed. So like being in Los Angeles didn't really work for me. And being here is so great. I mean, my wife and I are basically Gomez and Morticia, so this is way more up our alley. And I'm so glad we made that move. Awesome. My only regret is we didn't do it sooner.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people call Vancouver Hollywood North, and the only issue with Vancouver, there's a lot of creativity going on here. It just needs to be more focused, I think, because there is kind of like you're saying, the lack of stop motion. Even though there's plenty of people here who I think could do stop motion, like there is kind of some missing in, but it's getting better. I think
it's all getting better.
Yeah.
it's not a home run at all, but where is? You know, it's exactly. Like, I would love to be back in Chicago, but those winters killed me. Like, they're really brutal.
Yeah, I'm from the East Coast. There's a reason I moved out here.
It's tough. I mean, to each their own, and I salute those who can put up with those winters. And this just works more for us. And like I say, it's not a home run, but what it is a home, and we want to raise kids here. And like, I don't love starting over, but it is exciting to think that, like, okay, we are now networking from scratch, and we're making this our nest. Whereas in LA, I was really just trying to get work.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you're working on now that you could talk about?
I am in the process of trying to assemble a very, very small, rough, indie stop motion something, and I want to make a short. That's the very bare bones of what I can tell you, but it's maybe the start of something more. But at the end of it, right now, it's just the idea to start with a short, see what we can do from there. Still trying to find a home for a lot of sketches that I've written, whether I outsource that locally or internationally. My wife and I are always making shorts together. She's an actress and a script soup and a producer, and so she has a lot of projects that I kind of help her with. And we on a lot of stuff. So we're just trying to get into the film scene. We're still doing the bureaucracy of immigration, but we're really starting to get involved in more and more film and spook. We both love spook, and we don't know where that's going to lead us. Maybe an escape room, maybe something more tangible. I don't know. But we're still finding our way in this area. I do know that Vancouver is a beautiful city to film in, and I'm surprised they haven't shot like a noir here and called it Vancouver. It's always some other town. Yeah, they do shoot a lot here. They just pretend it's Seattle or some other place in the US. So I cannot wait for that to change, because it's noir up here. You know, it's like, it's so beautiful in the rain. Like it's a good city to shoot that kind of genre. So I mean, I don't know if I'm going to do anything with that, but I hope that happens here.
What would you say is your favorite role in the creative process? Because you've done a lot of stuff like directing, storyboarding, writing, I think acting even a little bit. But so what do you prefer, I guess, in the...
Directing first and foremost. That's the happiest I've ever been in my career. Directing, even the hardest days were the most fun. I like being involved in every department, and that's not to say I want to be controlling and have it tightly wound to my needs, but I like collaborating with people and seeing what they can bring, and sometimes I know exactly what I want, and sometimes I have no idea, and I like filling in those voids with their ideas and then seeing what comes out of it. And when I was directing like first season of Frankenhole, the results were so fun. And like we'd have like some art director would have a great idea and show me something, and I'd be like, okay, what if it's like this? And then the execution, and it was so fun to just that process, and to be at the directing status of all that is very fun for me. I like leading groups of people, but I also like to see what they can bring. Writing is second. I really love writing, especially comedy writing. And again, I don't need to be the loudest one in the room. I love the collaboration of it all. But it is so much fun to build something with other people. And it's so hard to do that in a digital space. I can't get the same satisfaction as when I'm physically there and we're building something. There's this great moment in Apollo 13 when the guy spills all these ingredients on a table, and he says, we got to fit this into this using nothing but that. And that kind of problem solving with physical things, especially in stop motion, so much fun. It's just constant problem solving. So directing and writing, and I don't like being on camera that much. Sorry, but I'm not.
I appreciate you indulging anyway.
I'm not an actor. I'm not like pretty enough to be on camera all the time. But I do like performing, like on the mic. I like voice acting, and I like being a persona in some way. So I guess when I'm writing, that's kind of my way to be on camera, or even animating occasionally. So that's my presence on camera.
That's fair. And I was going to ask, I think you answered it kind of already, but like, would you say stop motion is your favorite medium to work in, as opposed to like 2D, 3D, or live action even, because you did Renfield?
Right. Live action, well, 2D, or I'm sorry, stop motion is this beautiful hybrid of animation and live action.
Yeah.
It's almost completely live action. There's just a thing about the way you shoot it that makes it stop motion, you know. But it's this beautiful in between, and I think that is still my favorite. It's my favorite to watch and to make. Live action is probably second.
Okay.
I love live action. I would totally be down to direct live action. I like to bring my cartoony sensibilities to things like Edgar Wright, Taika. You know, these are people that like really nailed the stuff that I like.
Yeah, and their movies are very cartoony in some regards too. So,
Yeah.
and it does kind of have that mixed, which I also felt in Renfield too. Speaking of
McKay knows how to do that. You get a wide lens and you start low, and it's like it's real fun. You know, that Sam Raimi style.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So, I think that's pretty much all the questions I have for you. So I guess just to wrap up, do you have anything you want to plug to the people watching? Or?
I'm thinking so many things I've been on that we've gotten canceled. Oh, damn, I wish I did. Unfortunately, I'm too much in the process of making things. I don't have anything official to announce.
Well, you do have your website.
I've got my website. I've got my Instagram account, Dave Tuber Cartoons. And
they'll be in the description, so don't you guys worry.
I appreciate the fuck out of all the Moral Orel fans and the fans of anything I've done, but mostly Moral Orel. Like, that's still going. People still like it. That's so cool, and I'm grateful for anybody who sees a piece of art and appreciates it.
Yeah,
especially something I'm involved with. So much obliged.
Well, I mean, I guess we do have those storyboards over there, which we could show off to the camera.
Sure.
If you're interested. So this seems like a pretty good finale. So this is when we turn the other cheek. It's time to turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek.
See you later. Here, I think I have the drawing of the machine. Oh, these are deleted scenes. Where's that machine? I know I drew a picture of it in a wide. Let's see. Well, I'll find it later. Anyway. There's that. The true ending.
Yeah.
There we go.
Such a great ending.
Yep. Yeah, and this was, I wrote it obviously before we knew this was going to be the finale, so he made something more true. There we go, some notes from directing.
Adult World.
It is.
Rally. Oh, there's Adult World.
Just kids. Oh yeah, here we go. Early designs.
Oh yeah.
I was going to put them in the military and the Navy.
I like how you can see like they're both still miserable.
That was important.
Yeah.
Like they're too good. They have to stay together. You know. Yeah. These notes. I haven't looked at these in years. These have moved all across the country.
Internationally now. So.
Yep. Let's see. Early boards to Identity. These were the thumbnails for Identity. Oh god, I forgot about Identity. That might be my favorite episode. Oh well. I love the episodes I got to do.
Yeah.
Identity. Dino claims I didn't write that one, but I'm pretty sure I came up with the original idea, but I will not take credit for it, ever. But I remember having that conversation with him about the creature finding his body parts. So yeah, early designs. There you go.
You are immortal.
Early design I drew for the creature.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, there's the actual pencil drawing.
Oh,
that's
cool.
it. And this is what they scanned and actually became the creature's face.
Oh.
The process was insane. It was a very weird R&D. There you go, Dino original, horse with fangs. I think, let's see if I still have it. Oh yeah, that's the layout of the labs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We had 3 labs. This is for Identity. The think it was called a flesh belt. It's kind of gross. Birthday cake. See, I was like helping out with, not helping out, but I was just kind of throwing in my ideas for props and stuff. Yeah. And then they made the best frickin' props and puppet designs. Design creature's bedroom.
Very nice.
Yeah, early design creature.
These are still great. I assume some of these are on your website?
Some of these, yeah. I kind of I try to make it random, you know, but I really want to post all this stuff somewhere. Early design for Victor and Elizabeth. Here, Dino original, and then the final.
Very nice. Awesome. Yeah, this is amazing. This is a treasure trove. Oh,
it's pretty fun. Miles Patrick O'Neill. Why do I have that one? Oh yeah, the character we never got to make.
Oh, okay.
Deleted character. There we go, Rusty Boy. Let's see. So the characters. Dino said he wanted the mouth to be German expressionist, which I don't know. None of us knew what that meant, and I think he was just playing with it, which is great, you know. But we tried to. I think what we ended up with was pretty cool, you know, those bouncy marionette mouths. And that whole process was his idea, the ribbony look to them all.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really worked for the show.
There we go. There's nice. Some of the animators.
Very nice. Oh, wow.
There's here's Gandhi at the end of Hunger of the Vampire. A little shadow comes in. That was fun to make.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Orel's house. Oh, here we go. We'll sculpt him.
Oh, nice. Oh, is that the one from the mirror in Alone? Because it looks like it.
Maybe. I think this was in the newspaper. This was like mentioned in the newspaper at one point, yeah. Chicken.